Good morning, New Orleans. Good morning. Wake up, everybody. It is the Good Morning Show. I am your host, Dr. Ashansa Weiss. Producer Ira Sanders is also in the building with me. Good morning, y'all. Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day. Oliver's favorite day. He likes to get to hump day and slide on into Friday. So hopefully that is what we're going to do in a very positive, excited, Super Bowl kind of way. At the 7:20 hour, we're going to talk to Deb Grant. Deborah Augustine Grant, a retired president of the GE Foundation, now president and CEO of the New Orleans-based consulting firm Corporate Playbook. We're going to talk about women leaders with the NFL. And the New Orleans Saints are featured at the Dining with Deb, the Ultimate Women's Tailgate, which is teaming up with Super Bowl 59 host committee on February 7th, 2025. So I'm excited to jump into conversation with boss women all the time. So I'm excited to talk to Ms. Deb Grant at the 7:20 mark. But right now, this morning, I want to tell you about some local stuff happening. There's an oyster recall, y'all, for parts of southeast Louisiana. I myself don't eat oysters, so it doesn't really touch me like it touches a lot of my friends who love oysters. So there's 15 people who apparently were sick with a neurovirus-like illness. They ate at several New Orleans restaurants between January 1st and January 31st. So this is very, very recent, y'all. All oysters harvested from January 10th, I guess, are in question here. And so they named the areas where those oysters were harvested from. But if you ate oysters between January 1st and January 31st in the New Orleans area or parts of southeast Louisiana, and you are feeling or have felt a little not so great, maybe this is why. So again, I don't eat oysters, but I know a number of you do, and you love them raw, charboiled, whatever. Go and get yourself checked out because they are having a massive recall because so far there's been about 15 people who have gotten some sort of neurovirus-like illnesses because of these oysters. But on another note, I don't know if this is, I guess it's positive in terms of the big picture and situation. All 67 of the victims from the collision between the Black Hawk helicopter and the American Airlines flight have been recovered from the waters. I think that's just a little blimp, a little glimmer in a sea of destruction. But at the very least, these families will have access to their loved ones' remains so that they can have a proper burial and they can be laid to rest in a humane way. So all 67 of the victims of the Black Hawk helicopter and American Airlines flight have been recovered from the Potomac. So listen, our thoughts and prayers, as always, go out to those families. And so we want to make certain that we continue to extend that because the hard part hasn't even started yet when you realize that there's this is real, it's final, there's no coming back, the phone calls stop, the condolences stop, the media coverage around it stops, and that's when the hard part starts for all 67 of those people's family members. And so we want to continue to put out our thoughts, prayers, and condolences for all of those people affected, indirectly or directly. I mean, I think everybody, even the flight crew, the people who witnessed it, the folk in the other planes who happened to see it. There was a pilot in another plane who saw it, and he radioed the tower asking if they saw it. So a lot of folk are impacted directly or indirectly with this incident. And so our thoughts and prayers and hearts go out to everyone impacted, whether directly or indirectly. And so on yesterday, we were talking about the amendments that are on the upcoming ballot, and I want to be certain that we cover them as extensively as we can, particularly with Amendment number 3 being near and dear to my heart, which talks about the broad and arbitrary, subjective way that we're going to start to penalize children under the age of 17. That's what it says. It doesn't have starting at an age. It just says under the age of 17. And I think it's so broad and so ambiguous, it leaves the door open for interpretation, whether it's by judge, prosecutor, and we just need to be very, very diligent about what we allow to become constitutional around us, because as we're seeing now, even the Constitution that has been in place um, since the inception of this country seems to not have any real guardrails on it at this moment. So we need to be very, 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 very mindful of what we allow to become um, legal. Um, through our court systems, through our legislation, we just have to educate ourselves, and we have to do a better job of fighting against things that no longer have never ever served us. Not no longer have never served us, and we do know more often than not, laws are not intended to actually serve and protect. Is to do what they've always done and what they're getting ready to do now, which is these for-profit prisons. And it's so crazy how we're signing up now. There's this idea that we're signing folks up, the illegal, in quotation marks, immigrants and people who are incarcerated. There's other countries now asking to welcome them into their prisons for a fee. This for a fee. So people are going to be incentivized to further lock folk up, to further go around rounding people up, whether you fit the bill or not, because now there's an incentive to round you up, to incarcerate you, as they've always been. There's always been. We do know that the Constitution, abolishes slavery, except for if you are, judicially impacted. If you're incarcerated, they don't believe that you have any autonomy over yourself anymore. You are property of the state, and they want to be able to do what they want with you. And so when it comes to that amendment and targeting our children, and it's so broad and it's so wide open for interpretation, we have to be very, 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 very diligent in fighting back against that. And not saying that that's the only amendment that's important. There's an amendment that talks about judges. There's an amendment that talks about taxes. Like there's all of those amendments. All four of them are extremely important. And so we're going to get people on the show from now until the date of the election to talk about those amendments in detail, and to make certain that we are as informed as we need to be before we make a decision in the voting booth. But I can tell you right now that Amendment 3 is the one that I am laser focused on, because I saw the writing on the wall long before it even became a thing. And now it's a thing. And as with most things, they don't just start. They've been plotting and planning and figuring out a way to get this into or on a ballot, because they are relying on the majority of the voters that chronically vote. They're relying on you to stay home like you did for the governor's race. They're relying on that so that they can just get that in without any opposition. And then we're going to be very reactionary. It's going to happen, and then we're going to say, how did we get here? Who approved this? Well, the approval came from non-voters. And so we have to put aside our apathy for the process. We have to put aside our fatigue for the process. I understand it all. I get it. There's no judgment here in terms of like jumping on you about it, because that's not going to do us anything. What needs to happen is we need to set aside all of the reasons why we're tired, all of the reasons why it's frustrating, all of the reasons why we may not want to engage in this process, and think about what we're going to give up if we don't. And we're going to give our children up to a system if we do not wake up and pay attention to what is on the ballot and what that means specifically for our children, because they're banking on us not showing up to the polls to speak on behalf of our kids. And we have to know that. We have to know it, and we have to respect it. And so we're going to deep dive some more into this idea about how do we protect our children. And that leads us back into the conversation about the $36 million that we're still searching for, and then this $20 million of tax money that was agreed upon, and somehow there's a miscommunication, or there's somebody's going back on their word, or somebody is not acknowledging the agreement that was made. Whatever the case may be, All of this speaks to the protection of our children. And if we right here at home aren't doing our best to protect them, we can't expect a state government or a national government to do what we're failing to do. And again, let me be very clear. This is not a $20 million offering to our children. This is a $20 million agreement because of millions of dollars of tax money that was not allocated to them the way that it should have been. And so nobody's wrapping up $20 million in a bow and saying, here, we want to give this to you as a love offering. No, this is an agreement that was made to settle tax money that is already owed to our babies. And I don't know who dropped the ball. I don't know. And I say no. I can only go about what's in the media. I don't know who the agreement was between. I don't know who were the signatories on the agreement, but I do know there's supposedly an agreement that was made. I do know there's missing tax money. So let's not talk about the 20 million and forget about the 36 million. I want to keep that in mind. I will not let them forget about the 36 million. So we're going to deep dive into that conversation closer to the 8 o'clock hour. But at 7:20, we're going to talk to Deborah Augustine Grant, retired president of the GE Foundation and our president and CEO of the New Orleans-based consulting firm Corporate Playbook, talking all things women in leadership in Super Bowl 59. Stay with us right here, WBOK 1230 AM, what New Orleans is talking about all day long.
NOLA Public Schools' main round enrollment for kindergarten through 12th grade is now open. With 73 schools available through the NOLA Public Schools Common Application Process, or NCAP, finding the right school fit for your family is easier than ever. List up to 12 choices to maximize your chances and apply by January 24th. We're all in, and we hope you are too. Apply today at enrollnolaps.com. That's enrollnolaps.com.
The NFL is taking over New Orleans with Super Bowl Experience presented by Panini, happening now through February 8th at the Ernest N. Morial Convention Center. Participate in interactive games, collect player autographs, take photos with all 58 Super Bowl rings and the Vince Lombardi Trophy. Check out exclusive merchandise from NFL Shop presented by Visa and much more. It's the ultimate Super Bowl week event with fun for all ages. Tickets on sale now, and kids 12 and under attend for free. Visit superbowl.com to buy yours today.
Visit DePaul's new Algiers Health Center at 2801 General de Gaulle Drive to receive primary and preventive care for both adults and children. Services also include behavioral health, imaging, and on-site pharmacy, vision, Medicaid enrollment assistance, and more. For appointments, visit DePaulCommunityHealthCenters.org or call 504-207-3060.
It's Black History Month, and WBOK remembers Reverend Samson Skip Alexander, born July 20th, 1930, a reverend who stood for civil rights all across this country. Reverend Samson Skip Alexander is remembered for his civil rights activities and was known as the eyewitness to history before his passing. Reverend Skip was also a frequent guest on WBOK.
Well, marching at that time with Dr. King, you see, they had the first march in Washington in 1941. April Randolph threatened a march, and once they threatened that march, FDR was even frightened about it. But so Dr. King and them wanted to do it all over again. And so we didn't know if we was going to do it in Birmingham or do it right after Rosa Parks sat down. But so we were so successful with having the bus strike and shutting the bus down in Montgomery. So we say, well, let's go it on down 35 miles and cross the bridge at the Edmund Pettus Bridge. It was a symbol of segregation, Edmund Pettus Bridge. So we want to, if that hadn't been the one, if it had been another place, we'd have marched on it. But black people must never stop marching.
Remembering Reverend Samson Skip Alexander, our eyewitness to history during this Black History Month.
Black History. WBOK 1230 AM. Celebrating Black History Month. making a difference in the community. WBOK 1230 AM.
Good morning, wake up.
The Good Morning Show.
Good morning.
On WBOK 1230 AM.
And we're back. Welcome back to the Good Morning Show. I am your host, Dr. Ashanta Wyatt. My super producer, Nara Sanders, is behind the glass, pressing all the right buttons. But in studio right now with me is Miss Deb Grant, Deborah Augustine Grant. She's a retired president of the GE Foundation and now president and CEO of the New Orleans-based consulting firm Corporate Playbook. If you know me, you know I like talking to boss women. So listen, this is going to be a good conversation about women in leadership, especially surrounding Super Bowl 59. So welcome to the Good Morning Show, Ms. Deb. How are you?
Thank you. I am very well this morning. I'm very happy to be here and happy to join you.
Listen, I'm happy to have you here, and I've been learning about so many dynamic women who are local and who are intimately involved in the festivities around Super Bowl 59. So can you talk to us about what your role is there?
Sure. So Dining with Deb is a platform that I actually started in New Orleans in 2018. I had been gone for 30 years. I moved back home. I'm a native New Orleanian. And I wanted something that would connect women with a lot of intention across all of the lines, all of the barriers, racial, religious, political. And so we create an intentional experience for professional women to have connections, to have conversation. So we do it every year. This year, we decided because the Super Bowl was here, we would produce the Ultimate Women's Playbook.
Well, that sounds like a win-win.
Tailgate, I'm sorry, the Ultimate Women's Tailgate,
Yes,
I'm sorry.
It sounds like a win-win. So Dining with Deb brings together powerful women from all walks of life.
Yes, all walks of life, professional women, but in New Orleans, it's very important to me to cross the lines, right? To cross the barriers, to cross the political barriers, the racial barriers, the generational barriers. Because, one of the things I've learned in my career is I can't help you if I don't know you. I have to really know you. I have to have a connection to you. If I'm going to co-sign for you or maybe help you meet somebody else, I need to have a sense of who you are. And I wanted women who maybe didn't know each other to have an opportunity to meet each other and develop deeper connections.
That's wonderful, because I think for me, women's empowerment is important for me, especially when you're trying to get to a place and you see a woman that's already at that place and you kind of want to model what is happening there. But it's so much better when the door is kind of cracked open for you and folks are helping to usher you in.
Yes.
So what has been the most memorable connection or story you've witnessed at one of your events?
Oh, my goodness. A couple of things. So if you remember, and many of your listeners should remember, Cokie Roberts, who was actually from Louisiana, Hale Boggs' daughter, internationally known journalist. She was our first conversation speaker. The first year, 2018, we had some TED Talk speeches, and then I did a fireside conversation with her. And we had 200 women there. It was sold out. It was riveting. She passed away a few years later. And I can't tell you how many people came to me and said, oh my God, I had an opportunity to meet her. I had an opportunity to engage with her because she was internationally known and she was from this area. So that was really important. I've had women come to me to say, so the second year we did this, we had 300 women at the Hyatt, sold out. I had someone who used to work for me come in and facilitate one conversation for the whole dinner, one question. What would you do if you weren't afraid?
Oh, wow.
What would you do if you weren't afraid? And that's exactly the reaction people had. So we had women there who, came to me and said, you know what? I always wanted to start a business, and I decided to do it after that dinner.
Now, see, Ms. Deb, you're trying to start something, because I have questions for you, but now I'm intrigued by that question, because I think to me, it's prolific, because most of us are boxed in, and I had this conversation on air, particularly about my own family. We're boxed in by fear because we don't understand that there are no limits if our mind is set on something and we want to do that thing. But a lot of us are limited by the fear. We're working jobs that we necessarily don't want to work.
Yes.
We're doing things we necessarily don't want to do because on the other side of the fear is probably what we really want to do most.
Yes.
So I think that's a powerful question and conversation starter.
Well, one thing is, in my mind, what helps to dissuade fear is exposure.
Yes.
You know, one of the things we hope to do with Dining with Deb, I always bring speakers in using my own network from other parts of the country. This year, we have women who are boss ladies in the NFL and our boss lady homegirl who's with the Saints Pelicans to give people exposure to what are they doing? How did they get it done? You know, what are the things they're doing behind the scenes? What was their path? Because if you have exposure, if you can see something, you know, then you can aspire to it. If you never see anything else, you get very limited, and then the fear can build up and be a blocker.
Well, in a world that is so technology driven, I think the most intimate thing and the most powerful thing is that this is face-to-face
Yes,
conversations
absolutely.
happening. So do you think that that gives it that extra oomph that we're not on a Zoom call? Like you could actually
Yes.
feel the energy from the people. I tell folk all the time, I'm better in person. I don't really like to be
Yes.
on a Zoom or because there are intangibles that you get to feel
Yeah.
from a person. You can feel authenticity when
Yes.
you're in a space. You can
Yes.
feel energy. Do you feel that way?
Well, I think there's a time and place and a role for in-person and a time and a place and a role for technology. So, for example, at Dining with Deb on Friday night, it's a 3-hour piece. It's from 4 to 7. We have 3 components. The first hour is a networking reception. So you just get to network. A lot of people are going to know each other. They're going to see each other. There's folks coming from out
Like
of
an
town.
icebreaker.
Right. I have a group that comes every year from Baton Rouge. They told me they rented a Sprinter. They're going to come down. So people get to connect for that reception.
Yeah.
Then the middle hour is the content, right? So that's when we have the panel. We can talk about that in a minute. But the panelists, these boss ladies, sharing insights, giving perspectives. And then the last piece is an afterglow. So we have DJ Ari, who's our local girl.
DJ Ari Spence.
Ari Spence
I'm
is
trying
going
to give
spin
her
it
a
up.
bell, wherever it is.
She's going to spin it up. And, you know, it's the Super Bowl weekend, right? It's Friday night. So
Yes.
we as women need to celebrate women. Dining with Deb was created by women, for women, to celebrate women.
And listen, I think that's a wonderful thing. So you spoke very briefly about the panel.
Yes.
Can you tell us about the panelists for this event?
Yeah, so we have 3 panelists. Our local Shiro, Shanika Dabney Henderson, is with the Saints and Pelicans, and she is the head of VP of Content with the Saints and Pelicans. We have Shania Hayes, who's the head of Content, Entertainment, and Initiatives for the NFL, and Lauren Manning, who is the Senior Director of Product Design and Research. And I know she has a big piece to do with like the fantasy football, because I'm interested in getting into that with her. But these are women who are making moves behind the scenes that we don't see. You know, we watch the game on Sunday, right? We cheer. We see the guys out on the field. But there are a lot of women back there making that happen. And I want to bring out what they're doing so that the women here can have a sense of, you know, I never thought about that as a career. Maybe I'm not interested in it, but maybe my daughter's interested in it.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the reasons, and I've said it here on the show, and I'm going to ask you at the end of our segment, but I think that's one of the reasons why I gravitate towards supporting Jalen Hurts. His entire team is women. And what they're doing around him, and the energy they're cultivating for him, is something to be studied really and truly, because when you are in a male-dominated field like agency and managing, you don't think about the women who are also a part of that. There are a number of football players whose mothers are their managers, right? And so I think what you're doing is extremely powerful. So talk to us about how do you choose your women for your events? I know this year around it's centered around the
Yes.
NFL, so everybody
Yes.
who's on the panel are doing big things with the NFL.
Yes.
So in off years, when it's not the NFL
Sure.
years, how do you go about the talent for your panelists?
Sure. So I, early, because I normally do this in March for Women's History Month. And we pulled it in because the Super Bowl is in February. But I really try to listen and see what's going on in the world, what's going on in industry, what would be interesting, what are insights that people could gain that they might not easily have access to. So, for example, last March, I had a sister come down, Dr. Sharon Malone. Sharon Malone is Michelle Obama's OBGYN.
Wow.
And her book that came out last year is called Grown Woman Talk. And Grown Woman Talk is about premenopause and some of the things that, as Black women, doctors aren't prepared to deal with. What are the questions that we might have? How do we advocate for ourselves? And it was a powerful conversation. And so as part of the ticket price, everybody got a copy of the book. So again, I thought that was just a hot topic. It was a new book coming out. The year before, we had our former First Lady, Michelle Miller, CBS anchor, who had her book coming out, Belonging, which was her life story. So we always try to get things that are a little bit ahead, right before it's hot, right before it's on. And
Ahead
just
of the
to share,
curve,
a little
huh?
bit ahead of the curve.
Yeah, and she is dynamic. I went to a graduation, a commencement for the University of New Orleans
Sure.
the year her book was coming out, and she
Yes.
was the
Yes.
commencement speaker. So I got to hear hear from her directly. So tell me, how do you think events like the Ultimate Women's Tailgate help highlight the voices of women in sports, especially in the context of an event as monumentous as the Super Bowl?
Well, I think, there are women coming in town. So there's women who live in New Orleans. And one of the things that's really, really important to me, because I've had a chance to travel. I've attended Super Bowls before, Olympics, all kinds of things. And I always like to interact with local people, right? I'm that person that security probably hates because I'm going to go walk around and talk to folk on the street. I'm that person. And the thing that strikes me is we often have big events come, but they're happening around us. A lot of us don't get to go to them. A lot of us don't get to go to the fancy, smancy, fun things. It's all around us, or we might be working at it. So what I did, I was very, very adamant about making this an official event. So we went to the Greater New Orleans Sports Foundation to make sure this was a sanctioned host committee event so that we could use their logo. We could use the word Super Bowl because I wanted the women of New Orleans and other women who will come to go to something that is an official event with official swag and all of that. That was just incredibly important to me.
Oh, well, I like the way you think. If you're just joining us, we're in conversation with Deborah Augustine Grant, retired president of the GE Foundation and now president and CEO of the New Orleans-based consulting firm Corporate Playbook. We're talking all things women in leadership, especially surrounding Super Bowl 59. So, Ms. Deb, can you tell us about what are your hopes for the women attending this event with you, right, in terms of inspiration or connections? What are the takeaways from this event?
Well, I think the takeaways are important and meaningful conversations with other women, inspiration from women who are behind the scenes making things happen. I think they are just having a good time because it is Super Bowl weekend. And part of what I think we as women don't do often is really experience and allow ourselves to experience joy. I want people to have joy. It's a Friday night. We were intentional. Usually I do this on a Wednesday night. It's middle of the week. People can kind of get away, a little bit of a girls' night out. But I'm like, it's Friday night, and we should enjoy it. We should have joy.
Yes.
So those are the things. Learn something, meet somebody, have a good time.
And I'm intrigued, really, to be honest with you. Listen, the conversation is dynamic, and if you want to join it, the number here is 504-582-9422. So from your experience leading the GE Foundation and now as the CEO of the Corporate Playbook, how has your leadership style evolved over the years, especially with your introduction and your meeting and your bonding with so many different dynamic women from all across this country?
My leadership style has clearly evolved. So I'll give you a little bit more about me. Native New Orleanian, grew up in Holly Grove, went to Xavier for a couple of years, graduated from LSU. Graduated from LSU in Baton Rouge, have my master's from Southern in Baton Rouge. I got recruited by GE to join a training program, and I spent 30 years there. So I've relocated 9 times. I've lived all over the country. For me, it's always about having a vision, having a goal, giving people the resources to achieve that goal, to reach out and touch that vision. But what I would say about me personally, to answer your question directly, how I've evolved is I'm much more into giving people grace and allowing people to grow. So I used to be, and some people, they might dial in and say you still are, I used to be very hard charging. I was like, hey, A game only, A game.
I can see it.
Only. But now I'm into, maybe because I'm old, I'm into giving people just more latitude to grow and sort of see, well, where are you? What is your lived experience? And how do I value that and appreciate that and help you be what you want to be, not necessarily what I think you should be, but what you want to be. That's where I say I've evolved over the 30-year, 40-year career now.
And so what lessons have you learned that you want to share with aspiring women leaders?
Oh, God, there's tons of lessons. I think key ones would be always work toward your passion. As you said, a lot of people are in jobs and in things they don't necessarily want to be. And that's a reality of life, right? People have bills to pay. I get that. But don't let that stop you from your passion. Even if your passion is your side hustle for a while. I can't tell you how many women I have worked with in my corporate life who started their side hustle. and then their side hustle grew to be their main thing, and that's where they got their joy. But they use it as to take mentally say, I'm doing this right now as a means to an end because this is what I want to get to. That's a big thing. Never lose sight of what gives you joy and what you really want to do. I would say connect with other people, connect with other women, and that means across all the lines. Racial connect with men. You know, most of the people who, quite frankly, gave me opportunities were white men because that's who was above me. There weren't many black people above me. Period. So don't limit yourself, and don't think small. Think big. Really think about who you are, where you want to go. You said yourself, what limits us most is us.
Yeah. When I talk to children, because that's where my passion is, right? I always tell them to have big, audacious dreams. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about audacity. Have it. Because most of the time when we hear the word audacity, it's never in the positive connotation. But I think if you have the audacity to think beyond what folk limit you to, that is where the real joy comes from. Because we blow our own minds when we go past that mark where folks have boxed us into. And I think that's what fear does. It makes you think like, oh, it's scary. I have those moments. It's scary. I don't want to try anything new. I'm comfortable here. But I do know my most growth comes from pushing past that idea of fear.
The thing to do about fear, quite frankly, is think about a time in your life when you were afraid of something and you pushed through it. And you think about a mental model of how you did that. What was it that you did to do that? How did you feel? Did you feel nervous? But then when you did it, you felt great. So if you start to think about, well, you know what? I was able to accomplish this when that was going on. I'll give a quick example. In 2013, I was asked to take on 2 corporate officer jobs in the company in GE. So these were huge jobs. I was the one person, 2 people that held the jobs. Of course, I'm now doing both of the jobs. I was freaked out. It was October, and I had to just suck it up and get it done. But what I did, I wrote on my mirror, I said, survive and then thrive. I literally wrote that on a mirror in my bathroom. Survive and then thrive. And so my goal was mentally every day from October 1st until December 31st, I'm going to survive. I'm going to dig in. It's going to be hard. But on January 1st, I'm turning that corner to thrive. So mentally, that got me through the tough stuff because I knew there's going to be a point where I'm going to mentally turn this corner and start to thrive. But it was tough. It was tough.
Sounds like a book to me. Sounds like a book of strategies to me. So how do you think events like the Ultimate Women's Tailgate help highlight the voices of women in sports, especially in the context of the Super Bowl? Like, how do you feel like this event gives the floor to women to shine?
Well, it's because it's all women who are going to be there. There are women on the panels. As I said, Dining with Deb was created by women, for women, to celebrate women. So everybody involved in my event, where possible, is women. My DJ is a woman. The chef that night is a woman. My event manager is a woman. Everything we can do to source
Shout out
from
to the
women is women.
So what are the particulars around the event? The date, the time, the place? Can folks still get tickets to go to it? Is it sold
we are
out?
sold out.
That's a good thing.
Yes.
That's a good thing.
We sell out every year. We have over 200 women coming, professional women, mostly from New Orleans, but we do have those who are in town for the Super Bowl. And like I said, we have a regional following, the Baton Rouge area and so forth. But it's going to be at New Orleans Culinary Hospitality Institute Friday from 4 to 7. You can follow us on social, hashtag Dining with Deb. For women, you can go to my website, diningwithdeb.com, sign up for our mailing list, and then you'll be updates on other things that are happening.
So are you already planning for your next Dining with Deb event?
My next one is on Martha's Vineyard in August, and we are planning for that. That one sells out every year as well. And then we'll probably be back on a March cycle 2026 in New Orleans. So
exciting. So here's the fun question. KC or Philly? Who do you have winning the game?
Who do I have winning the game?
Yes, KC or Philly?
KC or Philly. I was like, who is KC? Who is KC? I don't know. I'm open. My team is not in the game.
That's
right
how
now.
most people feel like we're on the couch.
My team's not in the game. We have 2 African American quarterbacks, so that's a good thing. We have the brother from A-Meat who plays for Philly, who I'm excited to see him. I'm okay.
It's
Either
a win-win
one.
for
It's
you.
a win-win.
It's a
I'm
win-win
okay.
for
I
you.
want to see Kendrick. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to see
Listen,
Kendrick.
what you know about
Grammy.
Kendrick?
I'm old, but I know
Grammy-award-winning.
who Kendrick is. Yes.
He's so he's brilliant.
Yes.
He's so smart.
Yes.
And I think that's what
Yes.
makes his music
Yes.
like it elevates it
Yes.
because he's
Yes.
a thinker.
His writing,
Yes.
and I'm always into the lyrics. What do
Yes.
they say? What do they mean?
Yeah.
He's kind of in the vein of Tupac. So I'm very, very
Look at you, Miss
interested
Deb.
to
Like,
see
okay.
what he's going to do.
Well, maybe I should have asked you a Kendrick question and not a game question.
Well, I'll tell you. I had an opportunity to meet one of his choreographers and actually do a master class with her years ago, Fatima. She choreographed something he did for the Grammys years ago. And I don't know if she's doing this particular thing, but she's phenomenal. And just looking at the process of how they do it, it's tremendous. So I'm looking to see the showmanship and the show around it.
Well, listen, I want to thank Ms. Deborah Augustine Grant, retired president of the GE Foundation and our president and CEO of the New Orleans-based consulting firm Corporate Playbook. We're talking all things women in leadership around Super Bowl 59. But I also learned a fun fact about her. She's a Tupac fan, just like me. Because if you like Tupac, then you understand what we're talking about here. But thank you for being here with us. Thank you for joining us. And if you're ever in the city and you want to talk to us about whatever you have going on, the seat is always welcome to you. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Listen, we have to go to break, but on the other side of the break, we're going to jump back into conversations around these constitutional amendments, around what is happening with this $20 million tax money that is owed to our local schools and that $56 million. We're going to talk all things local New Orleans on the other side of the break. This is WBOK 1230 AM, what New Orleans is talking about all day long.
Hello, I'm Sharon Levine, founder and director of Rise St. James. I want to invite you to our 6th annual Black History Ceremony on Saturday, February 22nd at Rosie's Catering in St. James, Louisiana.
Saturday, February 22nd, a day of unity and legacy with the theme of Mzizi Yakina, celebrating deep roots and enduring brilliance. Keynote speaker Heather McTeer-Toney, singing, education, and delicious soul food. Visit risestjames.org for details.
We hope you can join us at Rosie's Catering in St. James, Louisiana.
WBOK and LCMC Health are proud to present Keeping You Well Cafe. 60 Minutes with LCMC Health, where the doctors speak directly to the people of New Orleans. LCMC Health is committed to improving the quality of care here in New Orleans, the Gulf South, and beyond. The Keeping You Well Cafe is another way for LCMC Health to engage with the community. At the Keeping You Well Cafe, LCMC Health joins WBOK and local businesses to answer your questions about wellness and health.
Good morning, Wake Up.
The Good Morning Show
Good morning.
on WBOK 1230 AM.
We are back. Welcome back to the Good Morning Show. I want to thank our previous guest, Ms. Deborah Augustine Grant, retired president of the GE Foundation and our president and CEO of the New Orleans-based consulting firm Corporate Playbook. We were in conversation about women leaders with the NFL and the New Orleans Saints. and her feature Dining with Deb series, the Ultimate Women's Tailgate, which is teaming up with Super Bowl 59 host committee, and it is happening on February 7, 2025. And shout out to Ms. Deb. The event is sold out. There's a lot of dynamic women already signed up for it, a lot of dynamic women on the panel. So we want to thank her for putting that event together and bringing together all of these powerful women from all across this country. So listen, prior to Ms. Deb's segment, we were talking about, and we were in conversation around these constitutional amendments that are happening. There's 4 of them on the ballot, but the one that I'm laser focused on is the one that is germane to children. And it is this broad, arbitrary way that we're going to start to penalize children under the age of 17 and possibly funneling them into adult prisons. And so, again, we just have to be very mindful of what we sign ourselves up for, what we sign our children up for, because what is happening nationally is already happening locally in terms of this state. And so while we're uncomfortable or, wondering how did we get here on a national level, I want you to focus in on what is happening locally. Everything, the playbook that they're using nationally is already in play here locally. So we have to keep our eyes and ears open. We have to educate ourselves. We have to not fall out of love with the democratic process. We have to make certain that all of the rights and access that folks fought for us to have, that we honor and we protect. Or we could very well find ourselves back in the same space that folk were marching and protesting for basic humanity and basic rights. So we have to, under all circumstances, not align ourselves with apathy, not align ourselves with the frustration of it all, even though I get it. Systems are doing what systems were designed to do. They're broken for us, but they're in perfect shape for other folk. So we have to keep our eyes on what is important. And what is important is, if this is the game that is being played, we have to understand the rules. We have to pick the best lineup, and we have to play the game. That's what we have to do. Unfortunately, that's what it is. And when you want to win, you put your best people in the best positions to win. And so that means don't allow any game, don't allow any event to override your civic responsibility. We all know that every time there's an election, there's something that is happening in this city or in this state that allows folk to gravitate away from the voting booth to go cheer for LSU or to go to a second line or to go to whatever it is. We have to handle the business first, and then we can go and party after the fact. But we cannot fall out of love or out of like with the democratic process. We cannot align ourselves with apathy and frustration. I get it. I absolutely do. But the very lives of our children depends on us getting this right on election day. So what happens when the system knows that you won't go out and vote, especially on these off-ballot years where there's nothing big on the ballot like a governor or a mayor, right? They're counting on you, or president. They're counting on you to stay home. And I'm going to say staying home is what put us in this boat that we do not want to be in, and it has us rowing for our very lives right now. So we have to keep our eye on the main thing. And the main thing is to make certain that whatever is on the ballot, the way we vote aligns with our dignity and our humanity, especially when all around us initiatives are being pulled away from us. Federal protections are being stripped from us. And whatever happens at the federal level, we do know that we have elected officials here in this state that are going to mimic what is happening on a national level. If you want to join this conversation, the number here is 504-582-9422. Good morning, Ms. Jones. Welcome to the Good Morning Show. Ms. Jones?
Not only voting on that day, but recruit more people that have turned of age to register to vote. we need to have an ongoing, everybody, any organization, voter registration drive, and then talk about this one and about the amendment. That's what needs to happen. So all the listening audience, continue. I mean, try to get people to register to vote. Encourage them. Pick up some ballots and from voters registration office. They could even go online, but I prefer really bringing it in.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. We just really need to make certain that we understand what is happening
Right.
with these amendments. And again, I'm not a fan of having all of these elections, but that's the system right now. And we just have to make certain that we're participatory and that we are showing up for our children and for our communities. That's really the long and short of it.
Right, and like I say, there are people who have turned voters registration age since November the 5th. So they need to be pulled out, and anybody who knows somebody, people know somebody, just encourage them. If you are a registered voter, not just encourage them, tell them that they need to register. This is local. It's more directly that we could do something than we could this past November the 5th.
Yeah.
So, get out there, register to vote, check to see your status, because I think a lot of things took place last year. That's not said. So people, listeners, please get those people who have turned 18 years old or 17, and they'll be 18 at that time. They could vote. They got to register.
Thank you so much, Ms. Jones. We appreciate you here at the Good Morning
I
Show.
appreciate you.
Have a blessed one. So listen, I was able to pull up the Power Coalition's explanation of the constitutional amendments, and I'll share them here so that if this is your first time hearing about it, you have some understanding of what is going to happen on March the 29th. So there are 4 amendments, and the first amendment is this. This amendment does 2 main things. Number 1, out-of-state lawyers. It gives the Louisiana Supreme Court the power to discipline lawyers who work in Louisiana but aren't members of the Louisiana State Bar. Number 2, special courts. It lets the state legislature create courts that focus on specific types of cases like business-related disputes. For this to happen, 2/3 of the lawmakers in both the House and the Senate must agree. What happens if you vote yes? The Louisiana Supreme Court will get the power to discipline all lawyers working in the state, even if they're from out of state. The state legislature will be allowed to create courts that handle special types of cases, like a business court. What happens if you vote no? The Louisiana Supreme Court would only be able to discipline lawyers who are members of the Louisiana Bar. Out-of-state lawyers would not fall under their authority. The state legislature will keep the ability to create courts with limited but specialized purposes. So the Power Coalition is saying that you should vote no. That is per the Power Coalition, not Dr. Wyatt. Proposed constitutional amendment number 2. What's the amendment about? It will lower the maximum income tax rate, meaning high earners will pay less in taxes. It will create a spending limit on essential services like education and health care. Any extra money would have to go toward one-time projects like roads and bridges instead of ongoing needs. It would eliminate the state's revenue stabilization fund and shift $1.76 billion into a new fund that helps cover budget shortfalls. It would take away tax exemptions from nonprofit hospitals, service groups, fraternal organizations, and non-religious schools, meaning these organizations will have to start paying property tax. Only religious institutions will remain tax exempt. It will remove the guaranteed minimum tax rate on cigarettes and give lawmakers the power to decide how much to tax them. It will change how Louisiana's severance tax, a tax on natural resources like oil and gas, is handled, allowing more of that money to go to local governments. It will let cities and parishes create their own taxes on things like income, inheritance, and fuel, something they currently aren't allowed to do. It will get rid of several education-related funds and use that money to pay off teacher retirement costs so that the teacher raises can be permanent. And according to the Power Coalition, the vote is no. There are parts of this amendment that will support Louisiana residents, like the teacher raises, but many of the tax provisions will hurt communities by reducing the level of social services that the state can provide, infrastructure that can be built, and protections for residents. I want to be clear about something with this amendment. Sometimes we vote because one part of it sounds good or it works for us. But what the Power Coalition is saying is there are parts of the amendment that would support Louisiana residents, like the teacher pay raises, but many of the tax provisions will hurt communities. So we can't say let's vote for it because it helps the teachers, but on the same hand, it hurts the community that the teachers come from. So be very leery when a bill or a piece of legislation gives you a part of something that sounds good, but by and large, it hurts the majority of us. So the Power Coalition so far is saying no to Amendment number 1 and Amendment number 2. Amendment number 3, what is this amendment about? It's about who decides which crimes are serious enough for kids under 17, juveniles, to be tried as adults. Right now, the state constitution has a specific list of crimes for this. The amendment would take the list out of the Constitution and let lawmakers decide which crimes should qualify through state law instead. What happens if you vote yes? The list of crimes in the Constitution, like murder and armed robbery, would be removed. The Louisiana legislature would have the power to decide which crimes could lead to juveniles being tried as adults. This will allow lawmakers to change the rules over time without needing a constitutional amendment. What happens if you vote no? The current list of crimes in the Constitution stays the same, like murder and armed robbery. Only those specific crimes will qualify for juveniles to be tried as adults unless voters approve another constitutional change in the future. What crimes are currently on the list? Murder, first and second degree, manslaughter, rape, aggravated, forcible or simple, armed robbery, kidnapping, aggravated or second degree, multiple serious drug offenses like selling drugs, repeat offenses for crimes like burglary or aggravated battery. If the amendment passes, the legislator could make changes to this list in the future. So the Power Coalition is saying no. So far, Amendment 1, Amendment 2, and Amendment 3, the Power Coalition is saying to vote no. And I'm going to put my 2 cents in on Amendment 3 for sure and say if there's already an existing list that shows you the crimes that could qualify children to be tried as adults, then what exactly is the aim here? I'm worried about this. And the fact that we could just leave it arbitrarily up to folk to add, lawmakers to add and change the rules, I'm not comfortable with that. And they're going to do it without needing a constitutional amendment, not comfortable with that. So vote no, amendments 1, 2, and 3 per the Power Coalition. Amendment 4, what is this amendment about? It's about how quickly Louisiana fills open spots for judges when there's a vacancy. It changes the timeline for holding special elections to pick a new judge. What happens if you vote yes? You fill judge vacancies as soon as possible using the earliest election date allowed by state law. If a big election, like for governor or Congress, is happening within a year of the vacancy, the special election to fill the judge spot would happen at that time. What happens if you vote no? You're saying you want to keep the current rule, which gives the state up to 12 months to hold a special election to fill a judge's spot, even if an earlier election is already planned. So according to the Power Coalition, the answer is no. So I've just given you a rundown very quickly of those 4 amendments that are on the March 29th ballot. And per the Power Coalition, you can find this at powercoalition.org/amendments. The answer is no to all 4 of the amendments. We have to go to break, but on the other side, I'll continue to keep you updated right here, WBOK 1230 AM, what New Orleans is always talking about.
WBOK 1230 AM New Orleans. Home of the Good Morning Show, 7 to 9 a.m. weekdays.
This news report is brought to you by New Schools for New Orleans.
I'm Bree Wood with 4 things you should know with BIN News. Federal court will hear arguments today on pausing President Trump's order to end birthright citizenship. The order is on hold after nearly half of all states sued to stop it. The CIA is offering buyouts in its entire workforce to align with President Trump's priorities, providing about 8 months of pay and benefits. The agency is also freezing hiring for those with conditional offers as part of Trump's federal downsizing efforts. Miami Beach wants people to know it's not interested in being a spring break party destination. Miami Beach is implementing measures like DUI checkpoints, curfews, and drone monitoring to discourage spring break partying and ensure a safe, family-friendly atmosphere. And Jelly Roll will be American Idol's first artist in residence during Hollywood Week. Previously a guest mentor and performer, he'll now be a permanent fixture working with emerging singers. I'm Bree Wood on the Black Information Network, your home for Black News First.
February is Black History Month, a time to honor the leaders and change makers who paved the way. At New Schools for New Orleans, we're celebrating the next generation of trailblazers, our students. Louisiana recently made historic gains on the nation's report card, climbing from the 49th to 32nd in just 5 years, our highest ranking ever. With progress in both ELA and math, we're proving what's possible. Tune in for Talk That on 12:30 a.m. and 12:30 p.m. as we uplift Black excellence, past, present, and future.
Good morning, wake up.
The Good Morning Show.
Good morning.
On WBOK 1230 AM.
And we are back. Welcome back to the Good Morning Show. I'm your host, Dr. Shanta Wyatt. Super producer Naira Sanders is also in the building with me. And if you're just joining me, we were going over all of the constitutional amendments that are on the March 29th ballot per the Power Coalition. They're asking you to vote no on all 4 of them. If you want to join the conversation here, the number is 504-582-9422. Good morning, Trees. Welcome to the Good Morning Show.
Good morning, you heard me?
Good morning.
How you doing this morning?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm okay. Listen, I was listening to that First Amendment in regards to them wanting to discipline out-of-state attorneys, and just people hearing that and say, of course they should be able to discipline out-of-state attorneys who practice in the state. But I just want, for FYI, for people, as somebody that was looking for attorneys when I was working with Erase the Board, and he was looking for attorneys to help us, help parents, and help us deal with a lot of these charter systems and CEOs, we literally couldn't find any attorneys that, one, wasn't either already working for the charters or the CEOs, or was even willing to take the case because they were scared of being reprimanded or blackballed themselves if they took the case. So we found ourselves having to look outside of the state for people who would be willing to, who were qualified enough and equipped enough to deal with the things that we had going on here. And that was a hard find because, majority charters is not something that's going on in a lot of places but here. So I just want to let people know that it might sound like, of course, why wouldn't we want to? But that's one of the things, too. They probably, want to be able to reprimand those people like, hey, don't you come in here trying to move our furniture around, the way they come to New Orleans.
Right. It's a good perspective. And listen, if Ken Jones is listening, I know he probably can give us some legalities surrounding why we should vote no or if we should vote yes. But according to the Power Coalition, they're saying no, all of the amendments are no. So thank you for that piece of insight. Wasn't thinking about it like that, but that's because you're smart. Thank you, Trees. We appreciate you. Listen, I love the WBOK listening audience, and she's absolutely correct. There's certain things that are happening here in the state of Louisiana, particularly in the city of New Orleans, that some folk are just scared to touch because it's like a conglomerate, right? It's you don't want to malign yourself by aligning yourself with things that go against the establishment, and that happens more often than not. And so that was a good perspective. And again, if Ken is listening or anybody with any legal insight as to this proposed amendment, we welcome you to call. The number is 504-582-9422. I want to do a slight pivot and bring this story to you because I'm not certain that it's being talked about enough. There's a young man, his name is Greg Brooks Jr., He's a former safety for the Louisiana State University Tigers football team. He's speaking out to share advice for young athletes after undergoing a life-changing brain surgery and brain tumor diagnosis. And if you are just now hearing about this, Brooks Jr. is now 23 years old. He was a newly selected team captain for LSU in August of 2023 when he said he began experiencing symptoms including nausea, dizziness, and headaches during football practice. I already read this article, so I'm going to tell you what is going on here. He was on Good Morning America with his father. They were speaking to Michael Strahan, and the young man was talking about how he was complaining of these symptoms. Listen to the symptoms, people: nausea, dizziness, and headaches during football practice. He went to his trainer. He was telling him what he was experiencing, and he was told that he had vertigo. That's what he had, vertigo. They said the next month in September, the Louisiana native was diagnosed with a brain tumor and underwent brain surgery. In a lawsuit filed in August 2024 in Louisiana, Brooks Jr. alleged negligence by both LSU and Our Lady of the Lake Regional Medical Center in Baton Rouge, where he underwent brain surgery. Now, the reason why he's suing is because when he first started to tell them about his symptoms, he was told he had vertigo. So he continued to practice. He continued to go through what he's expected to go through as a football player on the team. And then something more happened. He started to throw up at practice. He passed out at practice. He was vomiting and he passed out in front of the coaches and the athletic trainers. The lawsuit claims that Brooks was told by an LSU athletic trainer that he was clear to return to practice. And it wasn't until 39 days later that they sent him to a neurologist who discovered that he had a brain tumor. And it wasn't until 39 days later that they informed his father that he needed to hurry up and get to the hospital because his son was getting ready to undergo brain surgery. So, yeah, I do know that young men who are in these colleges, they're young adults. You might not have to inform their parents about every little nuanced thing that happens. But if my child is vomiting and passing out at practice, I think that that's something I would want to know as a parent. Now, I don't know if Greg Brooks Jr. told Greg Brooks Sr. that he passed out at practice. The article doesn't say, but what it does say is, according to the filing, despite continuing to report these symptoms on a daily basis, it was not until 39 days after Brooks Jr. said his symptoms began that the team made an appointment with a neurologist who discovered his brain tumor. Brooks Jr.'s father, Greg Brooks Sr., claims he was not notified by LSU of his son's condition until he was told that he will undergo brain surgery. So again, I don't know, because the article doesn't say if the son told the father. But if the son did tell the father, he told the father, oh, the team says I have vertigo. They said that I'm clear to play. All he could relate to his daddy is what the team doctors relayed to him. So I think this is a cautionary tale about entrusting wholly these organizations with the health and wealth of our children, the health and well-being of our children. The father says he's at LSU, one of the best colleges in the United States. Would I ever have thought that his best interest wouldn't be at heart? He added that he did not seek a second medical opinion for his son because he believed what the doctors and the people said to him at the hospital in Baton Rouge and the medical staff at the school. The family lawsuit alleges that the surgeon at Our Lady of the Lake Regional Medical Center who performed brain surgery on Brooks to try to remove the tumor was not qualified to do this particular surgery. The lawsuit alleges that during the surgery, Brooks Jr. suffered multiple strokes and was left with what the suit describes as severe and permanent damages. Brooks Jr. described waking up from surgery as waking up from a nightmare. He says, honestly, I thought it was fake, like I was in disbelief, like a nightmare that I couldn't wake up from. Following the surgery, Brooks Jr. underwent both chemotherapy and radiation. Though he has since been declared cancer-free by doctors, Brooks Jr. has had to relearn how to eat, write, and speak following surgery, and undergoes speech and occupational therapies daily, according to his dad. His dad also said in an interview that he has not heard from the coaching staff of LSU since October of 2023, shortly after his son's diagnosis. I know y'all know where I'm going with this one. If you know me, you know. Because I've always said, and I'm going to continue to say, that Our babies are only as important to these systems as they are beneficial to these systems. As long as your name is emblazoned on the back of a jersey and you could do what the expectation is of you to do on Saturdays, I'm not certain that anything else matters. And for a kid who had aspirations of playing on the next level, I think what we're seeing even at the next level, you're only as beneficial to them as you are beneficial to their bottom line. Because I'm watching the NFL cower to this national conversation around diversity, equity, and inclusion. They could dress it up all they want. They can make it seem as soft as they want. But a lot of the terminology that was emblazoned in the end zones came in the wake of the George Floyd murder, in racism, choose love, all of that stuff. And now that we know that the person who currently occupies the White House is planning on attending the Super Bowl, I'm sure he had a first-class invitation from our governor. Now that we know he's going to or has plans to attend the game, the NFL is now saying we're going to remove these words from the end zone. And every news outlet is reporting it, saying they're removing it because he's visiting. These are not my opinions. All the other media platforms are saying that. So you're like, Doc, what's the correlation? Here's the correlation. If our children could be mishandled by their universities when they're no longer beneficial to them, what makes you think that professional athletes can't be mishandled by professional organizations when they're no longer beneficial, when the conversation is no longer hot, when the cameras are no longer talking about hands up, don't shoot, when the conversation is no longer about Black Lives Mattering? Your Black Life Matter as long as you have that colorful uniform on and your name is emblazoned and you're running the yards and catching the ball and throwing it. You're very, very entertaining. Yeah, you matter. But what happens when you take the jersey off? I bet you Tyreek Hill could tell you what happens when you take the jersey off, because he was manhandled by police blocks away from the stadium where he plays and puts on a show for the very police officers who were mishandling him on Monday night and Thursday nights, right? This child underwent brain surgery, and they can't even pick up the phone and say, I'm just checking on you. How are you? Is there anything that we can do for you? The father says specifically, Brian Kelly, my son almost lost his life. Coach, where were you? Forget about football. Pick up the phone and say you love this kid, man. That's what the father is saying. How you going to ask somebody to say something that they probably don't mean? Because if he meant it, if he really felt that, you wouldn't have to beg for him to say that. Stuff like this aggravates me, because it's like we saw this movie before. We know how it ends, but yet we're continuing to ask and beg for basic humanity from people who lovingly come in your living rooms and beg for your children to sign on a dotted line and give the next 4 years of their lives to an institution that can't even pick up the phone and check on them. I listen. While LSU cannot comment on ongoing litigation, Greg Brooks remains in our thoughts and prayers as he continues to work through the rehabilitation process, the university said in an August statement. If he's in your thoughts and prayers, why y'all can't just pick up the phone and verbalize your thoughts and prayers to him or his father? To see that child, he was number 3 on the football field, Greg Brooks, he was number 3 in 2023. To see him so vibrant and playing and tackling and intercepting the ball and running down the field, and then to juxtapose that against him sitting in a wheelchair, barely able to put a coherent sentence together because of his brain tumor, is jarring. And then to have a medical professional who isn't equipped to perform the surgery, how did the hospital allow that, if that is the case? It says Our Lady of the Lake Regional Medical Center told ABC News it could not comment on the litigation, but added that its neurological team is among the most experienced in Louisiana, and they give our patients the best opportunity for a positive outcome in any circumstance. Looking ahead to the future, Brooks Sr. said of his son, I want him to be able to live a productive life, whatever it may be. Brooks Jr. said of his own path ahead, I just want to be normal. My God. He added, whatever card I'm dealt, that's the card I'll play, and I'm going to make sure I win. This child is 23 years old, and his life as he knew it is different. And that difference wasn't even worthy of a phone call from LSU or their coaching staff. Listen, we have to go to break round here because we have bills to pay. But at the 8:20 hour, we're going to talk to Marcus Brown, chair of the New Orleans Super Bowl host committee and executive counsel with Entergy. But we'll continue to have conversations that matter right here on WBOK 1230 AM, what New Orleans is talking about all day long.
Nights are made for chillin', and you can do just that every Sunday night at 10 p.m. as DJ Wick brings you The Love Zone. It's the perfect way to top off your weekend with your favorite old and new school ballads. So sit back, relax, and let DJ Wick take you to the Love Zone on WBOK 1230 AM and on the World Wide Web at WBOK1230.com.
Happy Hump Day and good morning to you. I'm Daryl Forges with WDSU News. And here's your headlines. The New Orleans Police Department is investigating a shooting in the Westlake neighborhood. Officials say a man was shot shortly after 11 p.m. last night near the corner of Lake Willow Drive and Lawrence Road. EMS transported the victim to a local hospital to be treated for his injuries. No word on his condition at this time, but stay with WDSU News for updates on the situation. This morning, nurses with the University Medical Center will once again hit the picket line to strike. This strike is amid the ongoing negotiations for a first union contract with LCMC Health. The nurses are fighting for safer working conditions and better preparedness for mass casualty events like the recent terror attack on Bourbon Street. The strike is expected to last 2 days. The state health department has issued a recall for Southeast Louisiana oysters. This comes after 15 people got sick last week from different New Orleans restaurants. The state health department says the oysters are harvested from Lake Bourne, Eloy Bay, and the Chandelier Islands. The recall is set to last for about 20 days. Security has been boosted exponentially as National Guardsmen can be seen around street blockades with high-powered guns for the Super Bowl. The NOPD wants people to know this is standard and meant to ensure your protection. Military personnel will be patrolling major intersections and enhanced security zones through Sunday. This all comes as President Donald Trump says he'll visit New Orleans for the Super Bowl. This is set to be the first time a sitting president has attended the event. I'm Daryl Forges, and that's your headlines for WBOK. Have a great day.
NOLA Public Schools' main round enrollment for kindergarten through 12th grade is now open. With 73 schools available through the NOLA Public Schools Common Application Process, or NCAP, finding the right school fit for your family is easier than ever. List up to 12 choices to maximize your chances and apply by January 24th. We're all in, and we hope you are too. Apply today at enrollnolaps.com. That's enrollnolaps.com.
Hi, this is Arnie Filko. Let's elevate every Tuesday through Thursday from 6 to 7 o'clock p.m. as we discuss the community, the country, and the world, from politics to current events to sports. We look forward to your input and continuing the quality programming on your community station, WBOK. Join Carrie and I every Tuesday through Thursday, 6 to 7 o'clock p.m. on Elevated Conversations, the Arnie and Carrie Show. See you soon.
The New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Foundation is the nonprofit organization that owns the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival presented by Shell. With the funds generated from Jazz Fest, the foundation invests in Louisiana companies through economic development, cultural enrichment, and free educational programs. To learn more about what the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Foundation does, please visit www.jazzandheritage.org.
Making a difference in the community. WBOK 1230 AM.
Good morning, Wake Up.
The Good Morning Show.
Good morning.
On WBOK 1230 AM.
Welcome back to the Good Morning Show. I am your host, Dr. Ashanta Weiss. Super producer Naira Sanders is also in the building with me. Listen, it is that time we talk about world news real quickly, right? So before our next guest comes on, I absolutely have to tell you about, which we've always been talking about these big gangsters that we have out here dismantling federal protections. And so right now, the current president, could soon sign an executive order directing the Secretary of Education to dismantle the Federal Department of Education, according to sources briefed on drafts of the order that have circulated among top administration officials. And guess what? The state, I ain't gonna say our, the senator from the state of Louisiana is saying, you have to hear this because nobody's going to believe it unless you actually hear it. This is what he had to say about the possible dismantling of the Department of Education.
To my friends who are upset, I would say with respect, call somebody who cares. They better get used to this. It's USAID today. It's going to be Department of Education tomorrow.
So, and y'all wonder why I call them big gangsters. They are big gangsters because they're no longer hiding in the shadows, sitting at Mar-a-Lago, putting this plan together to create this dictatorship. They're talking about their plan out loud. And then the senator from this state, he said, y'all might as well call somebody who cares. Get over it. It's the USAID today. It's going to be the Department of Education tomorrow. And this is before their president signed the executive order to do it. So they're already telling you that it's happening. Because, see, I call him the scribbler. That's what I call him. He's the scribbler. Old Muscatine is running the country. But the scribbler, he just likes to see his signature on important papers. So I believe he just like to see his signature. He feel important. He feel seen when he could scribble his name on important documents. I don't even think he understands what that scribble scratch means and how it's going to truly impact people that he has no idea how far-reaching that scribble is going to be impactful. Racism got us here. They like to talk about all the little stuff about racism got us here. Bigotry got us here. Greed got us here. But the senator told you to call somebody who cares. So if you're in the state of Louisiana, you surely can't call him because he don't care. They're doing exactly what Project 2025 outlined, exactly what we told y'all they were going to do, exactly what he lied and said he wasn't going to do. And now you got the Venezuelans on TV talking about they feel betrayed. He lied to them. He misled them. Oh, really? Did he? Did he now? Did he now? Right? Oh, because you thought he was going to go get those other immigrants. He wasn't coming for y'all. Oh, he was them other people. That what you thought. The senator of Louisiana say, call somebody who cares, when they're talking about dismantling the Department of Education, dismantling USAID. Also, the United States Department of Education's actual page, their actual social media, put out a post that says, empower parents and students through school choice, put an end to radical indoctrination in K-12 schools, combat anti-Semitism on college campus, and make education great again. That's the actual social media page for the U.S. Department of Education. America, you in trouble, girl. If you want to join the conversation here, the number's 504-582-9422. I just had to try to squeeze that in before we pivot to our next guest because, as always, as long as I'm on this microphone, we're going to talk about the things that matter, the things that impact us. Like, we can have fun. We can Super Bowl it up all week. But when the Super Bowl is gone, we have to live with the choices that we're making in the ballot box, in the legislature, by electing folk who have no interest in our humanity. So we're going to pivot and talk about some good stuff, some fun stuff. We're going to talk to Marcus Brown, chair of the New Orleans Super Bowl host committee and executive counsel with Energy. And if you want to join the conversation with Marcus, maybe you have a question for him. Maybe you want to tell him congratulations. The number here is 504-582-9422. Good morning, Mr. Brown. Welcome to the Good Morning Show.
Good morning, Dr. Wyatt. Thank you for having me.
Listen, thank you for being here. I know it's a very, very busy week as you are the chair of the New Orleans Super Bowl host committee. That sounds like a big, fun job. How's it been going?
Well, it is a fun week, and I really have to start by saying thank you to WBOK and your team, because very, very early in this process, when we started to try to get information to the public about the Super Bowl, you all were with us. Seems like a year ago when we first started talking about that, and you all gave us access to your audience to talk about the things that were going to be coming, and now they're here. So we really appreciated that.
Well, listen, congratulations, because I'm just always excited to converse with New Orleanians who are involved in such a huge event. The Super Bowl is huge. I said on the air the other day, like the security down there is tighter than TSA. Like, if you don't belong down there, you're not going down there. And I mean, that gives us, some comfort, especially in the wake of what we just endured. So congratulations that you're even a part of this. But can you tell us how the Energy get chosen, or how did you get involved with the planning of Super Bowl 59?
Sure. Well, when you think about, how does a city get a Super Bowl, obviously you have to have an NFL team, and you have to have an NFL-ready stadium. But then you have to bid for that Super Bowl, and it's a competitive process. And if you're going to compete against some of the other markets like L.A. and Arizona and New York and Miami that we've competed against many, many times, corporations have to help support the efforts of the local hosts to get that game. We only have one Fortune 500 company located in New Orleans, and that's Entergy Corporation. And there are only two Fortune 500 companies in the state. So when we started competing, we were at a little bit of a disadvantage. So we felt at Entergy like it was really our responsibility to step up to make sure that our city had the best opportunity to get this game. And because, the game brings so much value, so much economic impact, and such a great opportunity to showcase our city that we just felt like it's something that we had to do our part to make happen. So we got involved as a founding partner, and I got involved because I've done a lot of work with the Saints in the community, and it was a good fit, and I'm just happy to be a part of it.
Well, I'm happy that you're a part of it, and this might sound like, a silly question, because I'm native to this community, so I know why we get chosen a lot. But why has New Orleans been chosen so many times to host the Super Bowl?
That question gets asked a lot, but it's a really good question. And I think everybody out there should be really, really proud of the city, because it always starts with the people. Everybody who loves coming here talks about how welcoming the people are. It's like they welcome you into their family. But then there's some other things. The city has a great culture. the food, the music, the whole atmosphere we have here. People love that, and that's a big part of it. It's the footprint of the city. The city is built to host big events. You can walk from the French Quarter to the convention center to the Superdome and never really get in your car. In most other cities, if you have a big event like this, particularly the Super Bowl, people generally have to, ride 45, 50 minutes outside of the city to get to the arena. That isn't the case here. And so, so you put those things together. And then the third component is we've got a stadium that was built in 1975, so it's 50 years old this year. But the city, the state and others have spent $500 million in upgrading the stadium. So if you go inside that stadium, and I'm sure many on this radio show who listen have been in there, it's just completely transformed. I mean, the technology has been upgraded. The views are great. The food has been, upgraded. The fan experience is really nice. So we've got the people, we've got the walkable city, and we've got the stadium. That is why people keep coming here. They just love being in New Orleans.
Listen, and I think a part of that formula is the people here in this city.
Oh,
There
yes.
is no place like this place, and we hear it all the time. It almost sounds cliche to say. I think everybody believes their city where they're born and reared is unique. But when you talk about New Orleans, there is no place like it. The people here are different, and the experience. I know why we get chosen every year, and I'm grateful for it. But what is the legacy of Super Bowl 59 in New Orleans?
There are a couple of things. I mean, because when I think about legacy, we think about, well, what does it leave behind? It's great to have the game here. It's wonderful to have a week of people being here. But when it leaves, what does it leave behind? And there are a couple of things that I'd like to point to. One is we have the Impact 59 grant program powered by Entergy. Now, what that is a grant program that really funds all of the different community programs in our area that really can put some funding behind the things that will be impactful for our community for a long time. So youth development, arts programs, other things that our nonprofits are doing all the time. We're funding those things. The other thing is the economic impact. I mean, this game, the last time the Super Bowl was here was in 2013. The economic impact of that game for the region and the state and the city was about a little bit north of $480 million. And that was over 10 years ago. So we know that the economic impact of this region is going to be far beyond that. One way we've really tried to reach out beyond the traditional contractors, for example, is the NFL Source program. And what that program has done is it's allowed underrepresented business owners to participate in getting contracts for the services that the NFL needs to have done during the Super Bowl. And so we've had a lot of different businesses apply for that. We've had over 200 that have been certified. And think about the impact of being certified and allowed to participate in the bidding process to get work. And not just for the Super Bowl, but for other events that come after that, including work with the Saints. So that's going to have a lasting impact. And then the third piece I'd point to is a little bit of the headache that all of us had to experience in the infrastructure. There's been a lot of work done to improve the streets and and the lighting and all the things around the city. And I know that for those of us who've had to endure that in a compressed way, it can be frustrating. But think about the fact that we get the benefit of that for as long as it lasts, to enjoy clean streets, fewer potholes, lights that are working, all those things, the beautification of the city because of the murals, all those things will have a lasting impact. And I think that all of that is something that everybody in the city deserves to enjoy.
So just ballpark it. How many people are we expecting to come to New Orleans for Super Bowl 59?
Yeah, that's a good ballpark request question. We know that it's likely to be over 200,000 people.
Wow.
But the impact goes way beyond that, because we look at the numbers in Vegas and for the last Super Bowl, and you had over almost 200 million people worldwide who watched the game. You had billions of social media tweets and posts about the game. So it's like, think about the Olympics that we just watched this past summer, and every day you saw all these places in Paris that if you've been to Paris, you wanted to go back. If you've never been to Paris, you wanted to go there just because you were just given so much information about Paris. You got to see it every day. Well, there are 6,000 credentialed media people in town for this game, and they're going to be here all week. And they're going to be all over this state and region, and certainly all over New Orleans, looking for stories to talk about. So our city is going to be on full display for the world to talk about for the next 4 or 5 days. And I think it's just going to generate a whole lot of interest in people coming to this city, not just for the game, but for us. The long-term value is we're a tourism city as well. Those tourists are going to keep coming. Those big events are going to keep coming because they'll get to see how well we do the biggest sporting event in the United States. And we pull that off, then certainly we can do any convention, WrestleMania, any other thing, any other event you want to hold. We're going to demonstrate that this is a great place to do it.
If you're just joining the conversation, we're talking to Marcus Brown, chair of the New Orleans Super Bowl host committee and executive counsel with Entergy. Marcus, you briefly spoke about the economic benefits. Can you put a dollar figure on where the money goes for Super Bowl 59 in terms of revenue for the city of New Orleans and the state of Louisiana?
Yeah, when you think about how that money comes in, I mean, that money's going to come in through small businesses. It's going to come in through all those places where people are eating, they're drinking, they're spending money on merchandise. That money is going to be spread all over the state. Now, and most of it's going to be in this 10 parish region around, or even around New Orleans. But the other thing that's going on right now is the state and Governor Landry, they have erected a 14,000 square foot pavilion on the riverfront. And what they're using that pavilion for is economic development. Because if you think what kind of people, participate or visit the city for the Super Bowl, certainly the fans, lots of just regular fans come, but all the owners of all the teams are going to be here. Every corporation, major corporation in the country who has an interest in doing business in and around the kind of people who are going to be here, they're going to have representatives here. And so we want to use that opportunity to sell the fact that Louisiana and New Orleans is a great place to do business. I mean, we've got the Space Center here. If you are in the energy industry, whether it's oil and gas, renewables, carbon capture, electricity, all of those, all above energy options, this region is rich in that. And we want to sell the fact that this is a great place to do business. And so the economic development component of that is something that we're really, really focused on through the state to make sure that this isn't just a game for fun, and it's going to be a tremendous amount of fun, but it's such a great opportunity for us to sell our state. We've got our wonderful universities, our HBCUs, our centered, three of them are centered here. Dillard, SUNO, and Xavier are right here in our backyard. There's just so much here that we can plus sell to people who are coming looking for places to possibly do business later.
And I know the last time we hosted the Super Bowl was in 2013, as you just mentioned. Can you speak briefly to our experience then and what we've done since then to evolve for Super Bowl 59 here in 2025?
Yeah. Well, the experience in 2013 was great, and the work that, the Greater New Orleans Sports Foundation, and I probably should kind of mention how this works. The host committee is the conduit, the glue between the work that needs to be done between the NFL, the city, the Saints, and the state. And so what the host committee does, and the host committee really is run administratively by the Greater New Orleans Sports Foundation. Jay Cicero runs that organization. So what we do is we coordinate between those four groups to make sure that all the things that we committed to do to be able to get the Super Bowl actually get done. And so there are lots of, event preparations, security, infrastructure, venues, all the things that you would need to be able to provide the NFL for a game. We make sure all those things are done. But beyond that, in 2013, there's some things that we didn't do that we're adding this time. For example, on Saturday at 10 a.m., there will be a parade, a Super Bowl Mardi Gras style parade. It'll be start down the French Quarter. It'll end over by the CAC, and it'll have roughly 20 floats. It'll have celebrities on those floats, unique beads and throws. I mean, it's going to be a lot of fun. And so if the people out there want to see a celebrity-filled, fun, unique event that's new, we've never had something like this in the 58 years of Super Bowls. They should be a part of that. So that's something that's new that we didn't have in 2013. And frankly, it was a great game in 2013, but the game is so much bigger now. It's just the amount of interest just keeps growing. And as the NFL expands its reach into Europe, NFL plays games, all over the world now. It has broadened the audience. So our audience for this game is going to be so much bigger than it was in 2013.
Well, listen, Marcus Brown, chair of the New Orleans Super Bowl Host Committee and Executive Council with Entergy. Here is the fun question I'm asking all of our guests who are associated with Super Bowl 59. Who are you rooting for, Kansas City or Philly?
I'm always rooting for New Orleans, and, so what Kansas City and Philly can both do, if they play a great game, then New Orleans is going to win, And so I want both of them to have a tremendous game. There's a great opportunity, for, Kansas City has the opportunity to three-peat. Philadelphia has the opportunity to dethrone them. You got two, exceptional African-American quarterbacks playing in this game. There are a lot of ways to win in this game. But for New Orleans, just having a great show is going to be the ultimate win because we are tied with Miami at 11 for hosting the largest number of Super Bowls. So what we really want is to get our 12th opportunity after this to break that tie with Miami.
Spoken like a true
that's the win that we want.
Spoken like a true executive council. So thank you so much, Mr. Brown, for joining us this morning. I know it's a busy week for you, but we appreciate you taking part of your morning, spending it right here with the WBOK listening audience. So have a great, wonderful Super Bowl week. We appreciate you here.
Well, thank you, and thank everybody out there.
Absolutely. Listen, it's always fun to see how folk are going to answer that question because they're not prepared for it. It's not on the list of questions to ask, but that was a wonderful response, Mr. Brown. We always root for the city of New Orleans and all that revenue that's coming here. We're hoping that it finds its way in all of the much-needed places. So, yes, it's a win-win for the city of New Orleans. But listen, we have to go to break. But on the other side of the break, we're going to continue to talk about the things that matter. We're going to wrap up today's show. But stay with us right here, WBOK 1230 AM, what New Orleans is talking about all day long.
This is your news update for WBOK 1230 AM from WDSU. For all your news and weather, watch WDSU News, New Orleans' leader in live, local, late-breaking news. Today at noon and 4 p.m.
More fog in the forecast this morning and then mostly cloudy skies. Some clearing is possible this afternoon. Highs reach the mid to upper 70s. More fog tonight into tomorrow morning. Lows in the 60s. Highs back in the 70s with some 80s for Thursday. Staying warm into the week, on into the weekend with a passing shower or two. From the WDSU First Warning Weather Center, I'm Raven Richard.
Are you passionate about community safety and police accountability? Tune in to The Monitor's Mic, where we talk about oversight, policing, and you. Hosted by the Office of Independent Police Monitor, we're here to shine a light on policing issues that matter, from real-time policing updates to in-depth interviews. Get the facts and stay informed. We're breaking down complex issues, highlighting community voices, and holding people behind the badge accountable. Join us for an informative hour every Friday at noon on WBOK. Your city, your police, your show. The Monitor's Mic.
Saints of God, it's time for us to tell you the truth. It's time for you to start your 21-day challenge. Don't take another day. Do it right now. Call 504-701-4711. That's the Whole Water Stove, Pastor David Impartian Sr., the host of Change Your Water, Change Your Mind. This is the water that's designed to change your body, the way you think, the way you act, and the way you look. Why don't you start your 21-day challenge today? For $35, you can start it right now. Call me so we can set up your appointment. 504-701-4711. That's 504-701-4711. Change your water, change your mind.
Welcome to Liberty Bank and Trust, where your financial journey transforms communities. Since 1972, our customized banking solutions power your dreams and fuel your community growth. Every dollar you invest with us circles back to empower more people, ensuring opportunities for generations. Join us at Liberty Bank. Together, we empower possibility. Visit libertybank.net to start banking with purpose. Liberty Bank, there's freedom here.
Hey everybody, it's Kimber White Dupree.
And it's Graylin Bryant Banks from the front porch. We're coming up next.
Good morning, Wake Up.
The Good Morning Show.
Good morning.
On WBOK 1230 AM.
We are back. Welcome back, New Orleans, to the Good Morning Show. I'm your host, Dr. Ashanta White. Super producer Naira Sanders is always holding me down. And listen, we're gonna go straight to the phone line because we have a caller. Good morning, Ronald. Welcome to the Good Morning Show. Ronald.
Yes, ma'am.
Good morning. How are you?
Yeah, I'm just calling you. I called you the other day. You kind of cut me off.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I ain't gonna keep you long.
Okay.
Once you run for something, you got too much. You got a lot of talent. I'm telling you, girl. I'll be listening at you every day, and the issues what you talk about make sense of what these people trying to do to us. You know, I'm just glad you are there. But you ought to run for something, give a fundraiser or something. We're gonna support you. We're gonna whatever. Serious.
I appreciate that, Ronald. Thank you so much. Listen. I'm always up to serve my community in whatever capacity they are reaching for me. So
you talk about the children every day. You know.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Ronald. I appreciate you. Listen, I want to quickly listen. I thank all of the WBOK listening audience and all of you who support me and all of you who listen every single day. I promise you, I take it all in and I receive it all. But I want to say this quickly before I run out of time. There is an issue that is going on with our governor, and it says that secret meetings for Jeff Landry's government spending group break transparency laws. And this is a meeting that they're having in the governor's mansion that is known as the Fiscal Responsibility Program. It consists of 8 legislators and Steve Orlando, a neighbor and fishing buddy of the governor, and has met twice in the past week. One took place in the main dining room of the governor's mansion and the other in the governor's suite of the offices at the Capitol. What I want y'all to draw a parallel to, the Fiscal Responsibility Program sounds just like the Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, which was created by Trump via executive order, and it's ran by the Musketeer, Elon Musk. And the whole entire premise of it is he's vowed to use the unit to cut government waste and slash federal regulations. Well, guess what the Fiscal Responsibility Program is doing right here in the state of Louisiana? Same game, different players. So we have to be very, very diligent and paying attention to what is going on. Folks are screaming about transparency. Transparency is not just a requirement under the law. It is essential for building public trust, and Insurance Task Force has access to the diverse perspectives and crucial information that could strengthen its work. Transparency is not just a requirement under the law. These folks don't care nothing about law. They're rewriting the laws. Like, we have to pay attention. And even though, you know, it might get tiresome, it's belabored, like we keep beating it. Feels like you're beating a dead horse. What I'm going to tell you is the national playbook is our state's playbook. I truly believe that our leaders here, our leader here in this state is a foot soldier for the commander-in-chief at the national level. I think he wants to be the new shiny thing that the commander-in-chief pays attention to. It's like, look at me, I'm doing everything that you need me to do. I'm following your playbook to the T. This meeting of known as the Fiscal Responsibility Program is nothing short of the Department of Government Efficiency that has been created out of thin air and run by the actual person that's dictating the scribbler. Old Muscatoo is running our country. And I guarantee you, if you're paying attention, he's running it straight into the ground. And it matters not, because if you're wealthy enough, who cares about government? Who cares about the Constitution? Who cares about laws? You have enough money, you could buy outcomes. You could buy court cases. You could buy not guilty verdicts. You could buy your way into the prestigious universities. Who cares about guardrails? You don't need them if you have enough wealth and power. They're getting ready to dismantle the Department of Education. What is going to happen to our children who have special needs, who depend on that federal money to give them a free and appropriate public education, which is supposed to ensure that they are treated humanely in these schools? I bet you care now about that voucher program, huh? Because remember, we were warning y'all about the voucher program. They're just trying to siphon money from the public school system to put it into the private school system. Well, now they're getting ready to dismantle the Department of Education. So where does public schools, where do we fit in? Who's going to come and fix this? And shout out to Jasmine Crockett with the Oversight Committee. Shout out to Jasmine Crockett, who is very vocal about this foolishness that we're made to endure by these radical, right-leaning racists. Because that's what they are. Let's just call a thing a thing. If they could be big gangsters, we could be big gangsters. Don't be afraid to speak. Because I keep telling you, we all gonna die, or you gonna die cowardly, though. Something has to be done to put some pause on what is happening in this country. They're getting ready to sell our people to other countries to house them for a fee in their prisons. And nobody's alarmed. They're getting ready to dismantle government agencies where the health of people who are dealing with terminal illnesses will be in jeopardy. We already can't afford cancer drugs. What's going to happen when these federal guardrails come off and folk can just put whatever price on the medicine that they want? Because that's what wealthy people do. They figure out a way to get wealthier. And they don't care anything about your humanity or your poorness or your inability to keep your lights on while they're drinking $1,000 glasses of cognac and smoking $100 cigars. They don't care nothing about you. Let's start to care about and think about each other, because we've done it before. We were a community before. We built our own before. We had our own hospitals, our own schools. We had it all before, and we could get it all again. That's why they're really mad, because they know who you are. They want to keep beating you down so you forget who you are. They know who you are. We've done it before. We can do it again. But it depends on us seeing us as humane, us loving on each other. We could go back to a village mentality. We can all look out for each other. We can all love on each other, because that's what's going to take us out of the chaos that is our current state of affairs. But that's all I have for you on this day. But y'all can stay tuned up next for the Front Porch with Graylin and Kimber. And that's for me and the Good Morning Show. We going to see y'all tomorrow. This is WBOK 1230 a.m. What New Orleans is always talking about.
Have you heard the secret of what New Orleans is talking about? I promise everything will be okay if you're listening here on the airwaves. It's that WBOK 1230 a.m.
From the campus of Xavier University. WBOK 1230 AM. Go. An Equity Media Station.
This news report is brought to you by New Schools for New Orleans.
I'm Bree Wood with 4 things you should know with BIN News. The first migrant flight to Guantanamo Bay is underway, fulfilling Trump's promise to use the base for deported migrants. The naval base was prepared following a memo signed last week. Wall Street closed higher, driven by tech stocks. Palantir's shares surged 20